little goodies for you, a little gift we'll let you know about in a minute. But first, let us welcome our guest here. We're so happy to have Sarah Liz Reynoso. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
You know, we're going to get to a little bit of your bio in just a moment and your more official background, but just giving people a sense of you and who you are. Maybe let us know a little bit about, I know you're a coach and you do life coaching and empowerment, but also specifically attraction and even and relationship. How did you get into doing that? What's your passion, your motto, or your path?
Yeah, so what really got me into doing this is I myself am a divorced woman. And I did a lot of personal development work recently. And as a result of that, I realized that I have been responsible this whole time for what I've attracted into my life, who I attracted, and for the breakdowns in my relationship and ultimately my marriage. So I'm starting to see now so many single parents and lots of children being raised in broken homes. And my mission and my vision in life is to see less of that. And it starts with strengthening the individual in the relationship. I work primarily with women right now, and strengthening the relationship, which will also strengthen the home and the foundation.
I love the presence of the feminine in your tips that you're going to be sharing tonight when I got to go through those bullet points. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that and the empowerment and the acknowledgement of your role. It's the powerful place to take, because that's the place you can take some action. You can't do much when you're expecting someone else to change.
Exactly.
Great. Raj, why don't you go ahead and pull up the slides if you would. He's our tech hero in the house, right? And then we'll get to Sarah's bio as well.
All right, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We're broadcasting here from Pacific Northwest. I always say upstate because I used to live in Ithaca, New York. But yeah, we're here in beautiful Sequim, Washington at Gabby's mom's place, taking a little combo vacation and work times. So we'll be sending those vibes your way. We have a bay out here in front of us. It's like glass clear,
pretty delicious, water. Nice place.
We're today
blending work and play, right? Nice. So this is the season of play. In fact, we're a few days left in of the season of play, and so what perfect time to turn up the volume on that. But of course, the show must go on, and we're so glad to have Sarah on the show. She is a life coach, as I mentioned before, specializing in confidence, attraction, and leadership. And, confidence is so attractive, isn't it?
It sure is.
I'm looking at you. You're looking quite confident today. She's the creator of her signature program, Ignite Coaching Series. She also has a background in health and has done work as a personal trainer. And you can find her right now. I love the title of her show here, Real Reflection. That's real talk, real issues, real people. And she's interviewing all sorts of different people, but also just having reflection on her own. With your comments as well. So you can check out her show on Facebook Live, and you can find her on Instagram and Facebook. Both of her names are right there, and we'll put those in the comments for you also, so you can just easily copy and paste those and find out more about Sarah and what she has to offer and her great wisdom. We do have 4 of her tips tonight, and we brought one of our favorites for tonight's topic. So you want to tell them a little bit about...
A quick question.
Yeah?
With the confidence, attraction, and leadership, are those different programs, or are those all?
I intertwine them all. I also infuse health as well, since that is important.
Amazing. And tell me just a little bit before we go on about leadership and how attraction fits into that. I love that. I mean, are you talking about leadership in terms of relationship leadership or leadership?
Personal leadership, leadership in the workplace. So I love talking about relationships, whether it's within a couple romantically or even between an employer and an employee. That's another dyadic relationship too that I like to work with, but it all stems from our confidence. And when we're confident, we attract, we're magnetic, and personal responsibility and leadership plays a huge role in that.
Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if it is your first time joining us for Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV, we call it this because when we got married, someone said to us, You know, all you need to know for great marriage is to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. We laughed, and we had no intention of being relationship coaches at that time and being in the relationship education world. But years later, as our messy relationship got better and better and better, people started saying, please, you need to be sharing what you've learned. And we started to survey what people wanted to know about. And that's essentially what they said. You know, how do I not lose my shit when I'm angry and do something I'm going to regret? And how do, over time, do we keep the passion alive? So we do 8 episodes each season, alternating between 1 week keeping the fights clean and the next week keeping the sex dirty. And
yeah, and we really, I don't know, it's partially probably from I have an engineering background. Now I'm a business consultant, and Gabby's been an educator most of her life. And we really wanted to make the different tips and tools and techniques that we came up with easy for people to find the right ones for the right timing in either of those 2 areas.
Timing is everything, right?
Yeah. So we started looking at it, and we're like, hey, there's before, as it starts, during, and after, and we organized all of our content around those time frames so that you can find what you're looking for, what you need when you need it most, right at your fingertips. So all of our blog articles, our videos, everything, our show is organized around that kind of organizing principle.
So whether you're looking for spicing things up a bit and you want some tips on some seduction, or whether, like tonight, what to do after an argument, you make it real easy for you to find exactly what you need when you need it. Mm-hmm. But tonight is, as we said, is Fights Clean After. It's what to do after the argument. So you can look for this symbol here, the heart with the halo, and it's shaded in for the after. And if you happen to be joining us live, either on Zoom or on Facebook, go ahead and comment, and we'll send you our cheat sheet here. We have 8 tips for keeping the fights clean and 8 tips for keeping the sex dirty, so that you have this quick guide that you can print, you know, put it in your purse, put it on the refrigerator, put it on your phone, save it as an image, put it on your screensaver on your computer. So you want to have these reinforcement of these tools being there, but also you just have them available when you need them. You're like, oh, it's the middle of an argument. What am I supposed to do? Really synthesize down to just one short little sentence.
Yeah, and through our lives going through relationship, we mostly are not taught what we like to call satisfactory ways or solutions to navigating your relationship. And it takes something to kind of relearn, reprogram how we deal with and really nourish our relationships. And these tips on these cheat sheets here are a great way to like relearn or newly learn how you do that. So don't miss out on these cheat sheets.
Yes, we'd like to give away the good, quick, easy summaries. Now, but if you are specifically watching this, whether it's live or replay, for this particular topic, the Fights Clean After, then we just wanted to point out that you have other blogs, you have what we call our quick tip video clips. So you can go on our website and look for this symbol and get other resources that can support you in this area.
Okay.
All right, but we have one juicy tip for you tonight. We have 4 tips that we're looking forward to getting from Sarah in just a moment, but we're going to dive into this tip. This is called Argument Even Better Ifing, and this is such a powerful tool to really help you not just get past an argument. You know, it says here, do you want to move on or move forward? But actually look back and say, well, how did this go and how could it go better next time? It's a real nice structure. It's not like, hey, we need to talk about how that fight went and we need to do this differently. But it's a very specific structure, very simple questions that you can ask to give yourself some very detailed next steps on how you can do better next time.
Yeah, and this tool stemmed from, as I mentioned earlier, I do business consulting, and Gabby does a lot of work in the realm of relationship coaching now. And I took this principle that I use in my business consulting around how do you take what is and make it even better if. and people get stuck.
Yeah, EBIs instead of I don't want that, I don't want that. Well, what would it make it even better if? It's just a different context of shifting the complaint into a request. It'd be even better if this. And honey, now that I realize this shower right here in this bathroom is where this tip was created.
Totally
we had an argument on Christmas Day, and it was
like 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago or so, and it
when
was
we were
like
staying here for Christmas.
and it was like 15 or 20-minute argument. It could have been worse, but it didn't have to be that long. And the next day or later on that day, we were in the shower. We call the Sunder Conference Center because we do our best talking and thinking there. And excuse me. And Raj said, why don't we did okay in that argument, but we could have done better. Why don't we look at how we did? And I said, okay, well, let's give it some criteria. How will we know how well we did? And we started to intentionally create a tool that we could use for ourselves and pass on to others. So this tool, it's really about, first of all, if you're just willing to look at how an argument went and how it can be better next time, then you're already halfway there. So I call that willing is winning. Right? Just even if it's only one of you and it really takes two to tango, but it's just one person to improve a relationship. Now, that's not suggesting people be doormats, but it really does just take one person to change the dynamic because habits happen by cues. So if you change one part of the dynamic, then there is something that is different that's happening.
Okay.
You want me to jump on? Okay. So also this is about becoming a fabulous fighter. But some people think, well, maybe I shouldn't be fighting at all. And I just wanted to point out that the research by one of our favorite relationship researchers, John Gottman from the Gottman Institute, otherwise known as the Love Lab, is it's okay if you don't fight, and it's actually okay if you do fight, and it's okay if you fight and nobody apologizes. The real challenge is if you fight and one person reaches out for an apology and the other person doesn't accept the olive branch. So it's not that you want to avoid fighting entirely, although that's fine, but you want to make sure that you're learning from your arguments, you're embracing the olive branch and having practices on how to come back together after you've had an argument.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little something about that. Like Gabby said, there's a whole range of fighting or not fighting. And I'll just say that we want to relieve some of the stress around like fighting is bad. Fighting is whatever you call it, getting in an argument, a heated discussion, disagreement. We just use fighting as a catchphrase. And, you're working through a lot of things in your relationship, really deep wounds from your past. Your intimate self is getting to learn and heal in ways that it never had been able to before. And so things come up. So if you're fighting, it's natural. Things are trying to get healed and you're trying to, grow together with your partner. And we want to teach you how to do that better and better. And also when you do have a specific argument, if you can look back at it and be like, hey, okay, we did okay with that. How might we do it better next time? Through that, it's almost like coaching yourselves to get better and better at talking about things that might lead to a little heat,
I mean, that's part of the benefit of being in a long-term relationship, right? Is, okay, well, we had the same fight 18 times. Maybe we should try doing this a different way. You could keep doing the same thing and expecting it to be different, but that's the definition of insanity, right? So this is all about the even better ifing. And this picture here is it shows you, I love these arrows in the road. You want to be moving forward, not just moving on past your argument. And you may have heard in business, and Raj and I would like to take business practices and apply it to relationship and relationship practices and apply it to business. And one of these ideas is, measurement makes it meaningful. So we want to show you how to measure your argument in a few different areas by just asking these questions after you have an argument.
You might want to wait a little bit, right?
Make sure it's after the argument, not still during the argument.
Right.
Yeah, just like when we talk about the tips for after sex, we're usually talking about an hour afterwards. So make sure that the argument is over. So the first question to ask is, how often does this happen? A 10 would be, because you're going for all 10s, right? A 10 would be, oh, we've never had that fight before. Raj and I, if we have a fight we've never had before, we call that a good fight, because we're in new territory. There's a new level of intimacy, or somehow we're different, or something's changed.
So a 10 is good. on that one.
Yeah, 10's good. All 10s. We're going to 1, is, oh my gosh, we just had that fight this morning. If I have that fight one more time, I'm going to pull my hair out. The second one.
How extreme they get. So, different arguments can get to different levels of heat and intensity and, yelling, screaming, name calling, etc. And the more extreme it gets, the lower the number.
Yeah, you do not want to. And for you, this is gonna depend. Where are your lines in the sand? And hopefully, over time, your lines in the sand are changing. For example, Raj and I, we used to swear at each other. We'd call each other names. Not all the time, but when it wasn't like off the table. And then about 3 years into our relationship, we're now 12 years in, we said, you know what, we're just not going to do that. That's just not who we want to be. So that was a line in the sand. So a 10 is, we didn't cross any lines. We did have an argument, but it was all within the frame of legitimate, empowered conversation. But then you can go to no on the other hand. Oh my gosh, I thought the neighbors were going to call the cops, and I threw that thing at his head, and I, thankfully missed him, or whatever it may be. We're making light here of, arguments can get pretty serious, but you want to, in advance, yourself and with your beloved, if possible, get clear on what are the lines that you're not going to cross. Now, not what are the lines you can't cross. You may come together and both share this agreement. You can create them on your own, but only you can hold yourself accountable. I'm really excited for some of Susan's tips here, Sarah's tips here, and that Sarah has got some stuff about ownership, and Raj and I are really big on ownership here. So you got to look for yourself. What are the lines you don't want to cross?
Okay, then how long did it last? A 10 would mean that it was over quickly. And a 1 means it's lasting hours or days. Or
weeks or months, or it never ends, right? It's still ongoing. Yeah, we had a teacher once who said, remember Lily said, if you're upset for more than 5 minutes, it's arrogance. So get upset, experience it, and move on. You don't want these fights to be lasting very long.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean push it down and don't get it resolved. It just means that you can either choose to keep rubbing salt in the wound of the upset, metaphorically, or you can choose to grow and learn and move beyond it. And Gabby and I have really learned that we like to learn from what isn't working and then move forward. We used to actually, stay in conflict, and we just realized our lives are too busy and we don't have a whole lot of downtime to be relaxed and intimate with each other. And so we just really don't let things fester.
Yes. And you can make it a game, right? If your last argument lasted an hour, can you do it in half an hour, and keep making it shorter and shorter? Raj and I, we even had in 2015, we had 3 fights. So we said in 2016, we were going to have 2 or fewer, right? So you can always just be playing
and
these.
Those are the big juicy fights.
Yeah, the big juicy fights, not the just little arguments, but we defined a fight as tears and yelling, right? But at any rate, the point is you can play a game with how often or how infrequently you want to have these episodes happening. So the fourth one here is, did you use any tools? You're like, oh yeah, that nonviolent communication tool. Oh, the drama-free diet that Gabby and Raj taught me. Oh, the hot and bothered backseat driver. Oh, the ownership reconnection challenge. Whatever it is, finding out whether it's tips through us or tips you've learned elsewhere. There's lots of memorable tips you can use in the moment. So a 10 would be, oh my gosh, yeah, nonviolent communication. I used argument even better ifing. I used the drama-free diet. Or is it more on the one side, tools? What tools? No, I was mad and I let them know it.
Great. And on this last tip, did you learn any lessons? So this is really critical to the concept of even better ifing, is evaluating, hey, what did we learn and what can we take into if this happens again or a different argument? And so you really want to look at those 2 things, what lessons learned, maybe some self-reflection, and also, hey, wow, if I had used that tool, that would have worked a lot better. I'll just keep that in mind for next time.
And if you're using the argument even better ifing tool after an argument, even if your beloved isn't up for playing the game, you can assess yourself. If you're doing that, then you've got built in, you're already looking to learn the lessons because you're answering these questions. So you want to then take what you're learning and just make a declaration. You know, what am I going to do in terms of how you did cross some lines, and you make a specific declaration about how you're not going to cross that line again. Or maybe it's about how often it was happening and you said, wow, I'm having this fight 3 times a week. I'm going to go a week. I'm going to go 7 days without having the fight.
Right. And just, you know, at the end of this, you can just write these lines down and then put a number next to them. And you can come up with your own criteria
Meaning
as well.
write these questions down.
Write these questions down and score them out of 1 to 10 together. And you can come up with your own criteria as well if you'd like to.
Yep. So we have this action option for you. Dun, 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 dun.
It's like the new Mission Impossible.
Dun, dun, dun. Yep. Mission Impossible just
If you
came
didn't
out again.
recognize that was the Mission Impossible thing.
Just to bring some fun to it, we do want to encourage you to take action here, right? Really to be looking at how can you put this into play in your own life. So first, just confirm that the fight is indeed over and that you're ready to move forward, not just move on. Find a relaxing space for the 2 of you and do a little argument, even better ifing. You can answer these questions and score your argument in these areas. You can score, I recommend that you score how you did. Don't score how your partner did. You can score how you thought you did in the relationship in general, but refrain from scoring your partner. I give you a 4. I don't think you did a very good job. You don't want to start an argument using this tool, right? So how often does this particular fight happen? How extreme or bad did it get? How long did it last? Did you use any tools? And did you learn any lessons? So then finally, total your score. You want to aim for a 10 on all of those areas, and then set a goal so that your next argument can be even closer to a 10. And you can pick the overall number you want to be aiming for, or you can actually pick an area. Maybe it was I often recommend people look at the one about tools, because that's often when people score very low on. They're like, tools? No, I didn't use any tools. So you can look on one of our blogs or look on our Facebook page and find a tool or any other place and pick a communication tool, an emotional intelligence tool, something that you're going to do next time, and play a game by making a specific declaration that that's what you're going to be up to.
Great. And just one point. Now, you said don't score the other person. What about scoring together? So
Yes.
it's not your
Yeah, I was saying that you can score the overall experience together, but just refrain from scoring them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So we're about to turn this over to Sarah for her lovely tips that she's brought for us. But Sarah, anything to say that you saw in that kind of post-argument analysis that we recommend?
Oh gosh, I love what the 2 of you are up to in this world. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It is much needed. I love the tips that you gave. I think it's really important to go into ownership. I love how you said don't rate your partner, because that in itself can start another argument right there.
Yeah.
It's about taking personal responsibility. I think it's really important for viewers to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Well, great. Well, then let's dive into and that's a great segue actually into the first tip that you gave us here about, the acknowledging. Raj is going to pull up the screen here, but just acknowledging your role. Should we start there?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, any type of fight, disagreement, breakdown in a relationship, it really stems from our needs and wants not being met by our partner. So how we communicate our needs and wants not being met plays a big role in the success or the breakdown of the relationship over time. So one tip I have for everyone watching is to acknowledge your role in the fight. It's so easy for us to blame our partners or go after them by saying, you did this, you made me mad. That's a common one that a lot of people like to use, that phrase, you made me do this, you made me upset. So it's really important to acknowledge your own role in the fight. What did you do? And what was the role that you played that created that breakdown in that relationship? We don't often see ourselves and look inwardly at our own role in the breakdown. It takes 2 to have a breakdown. It takes 2 to have an argument or a fight. And so oftentimes we're so focused on our partner and blaming them, and we don't look inwardly to see, okay, so what did I do to trigger this? What did I say? What was my reaction? Things of that nature. So step number 2 that I would like to share is to use your empowered voice to communicate your wants and needs.
Before
So,
you go, mind if I just ask you a bit about the acknowledging your role?
yes.
So important. There's so much blame, it's just the natural way to go. Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt, they call it, blaming, shaming, complaining, and criticizing. That's how they define negativity. And that seems to be like the go-to on how people relate to a challenge in their relationship, is just in this blame and negativity. So it's not that there was anything I was wanting to poke and ask questions, but just to really emphasize even more what a wonderful place that is to start from, of what is mine to own, and not just to own in the moment of, well, I said this or I did this, but to trace that back to owning your own needs and saying, well, I have a need for autonomy and freedom because I felt smothered as a child. And so right now in this argument, that's where I'm coming from, as a 7-year-old who's trying not to be smothered. And if you can articulate that and own that, that person doesn't have to defend, because you're not blaming them now. They're almost asking partnership in, hey, be my partner in healing this wound from my childhood, rather than you pissed me off right now and it's your fault and you need to fix it.
Yes, so many times people don't realize their own emotional wounds and childhood traumas that they carry with them. So they bring this into a relationship without realizing that. And so they're easily triggered by something that their partner did, that maybe something an adult did to them as a child, or a parent, or a caretaker, or a school teacher. So these experiences that we had as children shape our beliefs, shape our identity. And so it often shows up if we have these emotional wounds and traumas from our childhood, and if they're not addressed and we're not aware of them, it'll show up and magnetize in a relationship with our partner.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm writing these down. If you see me looking away a bit, I'm writing down some of the things that you're saying here. It really does. Those childhood wounds really do shape the lens with which you are seeing the argument in the first place. So first, coming back to ownership is so great. I actually had a couple that I was working with that created their own tool called the Ownership Reconnection Challenge. So that every time they felt tension, this is more of a fights clean during, or as it starts, but as they felt tension starting in an argument, they would just stop and say, what can I acknowledge? For example, even if it was, I can acknowledge that I didn't do my morning meditation and I'm tense over that. Or I haven't eaten in 6 hours, so I'm a little hangry, or whatever it might be. Whether acknowledging something in the moment or it's acknowledging the connection to your needs from the past.
Right. And because we care so much, about our partner, we love our partners, they love us, we put so much value on their opinion of us. And our, feelings are very strong. So the sensitivity can run really high when there's a breakdown in the romantic relationship, especially when wants and needs aren't being met and we don't address them and we don't acknowledge our own role in that breakdown.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to put a little exclamation point next to the acknowledgement and the ownership. Yeah.
So then to use your empowered voice to communicate your wants and needs. So there's a difference between the empowered voice and the disempowered voice. The disempowered voice, it comes from a place of blame, victim, you always, you never, the allness terms, blaming our partner. And even just in general in society today, we see a lot of this in general. A lot of people come from a disempowered place because they don't see and look inwardly their role. We see this a lot in the workplace where a lot of employees are filing, harassment cases against their supervisors. I live in California. So California is a very highly sensitive state. So we see this in the workplace. So of course, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if we see this in society, of course, this is going to show up in our personal relationships with our partners and with other people. So we're used to seeing people walking around with this disempowered voice, this disempowered way of being. And I'm all about switching that over to empowered responsibility. And what that looks like is saying, when you said this, I felt this. These are my wants and needs, and it's my responsibility to communicate them to you. And I'll give you an example of disempowerment. So let's say you're in a car ride with your partner and it's hot, and you want your partner to raise the air conditioning, but rather than actually ask for what it is that you want and be direct and say, hey, honey, can you raise the air conditioning of the car? Is it okay if I raise the air conditioning? A disempowered person will say something like, gee, it's hot, and throw hints, or it would say something passive aggressive like, I really wish you would turn up the air conditioning because it's really hot in here. Putting the blame on our partner, and I'm sure arguments have happened that way, rather than say, address what it is that you want and need. You're hot, therefore communicate with your partner. Hey, honey, is it okay if I turn up the air conditioning, or if you turn up the air conditioning because I'm feeling hot? Direct communication is key, rather than having them guess and expecting them to pick up on cues that we're hot by talking about the weather, or gee, it's really hot, if there's some tension in the relationship, I really wish you would just turn up the air, So I think it's really important that we speak from an empowered place, owning our wants and needs, and taking ownership of that, and not putting it on our partner and expecting them to figure us out and guess what it is that we want and need.
Yeah, I took what you said here and wrote, use your empowered voice to communicate your wants and needs. Move past sending cues. Be direct.
Yes.
You do not want to be sending these hints.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
From someone that has learned how to communicate his needs directly myself, instead of doing all the stuff that you're talking about, it can be really scary for people that aren't used to asking for whatever the word is. It's not comfortable. And it's just, again, like you said earlier, from your past. Maybe you asked for something in your past and either you got punished or shut down, or for some reason it's not easy potentially for you to ask for what you want. And so, just keep that in mind. We're not saying here that is necessarily easy for you to do, but it's something to work on. And if you notice that you have difficulty doing that, you might want to get some further coaching on why. Why do you have difficulty in expressing your needs and wants from an empowered place?
Yeah, when the first few years we were together, I have no problem saying my needs, but I'm not attached to them. I'm like, oh, let's go here. That sounds fun. And Raj would be thinking to himself, oh, I don't want to go there, but she wants to go there, so we might as well just go where she wants. And then later on be resentful that, we didn't go where he wanted to go, and we went where I wanted to go. And so I had to learn to ask more and actually be, really inquisitive almost. And he had to learn to, like, if he has a desire, to actually speak up and say it. And it was good for both of us. Me looking at, how am I just throwing out what I want all the time? Does that impede anybody else's expression of what they want? And Raj learned to speak up. He learned that if he asks for what he wants, he often gets it.
Yeah, like tonight, we have some friends over, and Gabby, I was in the middle of my workday, and Gabby said, hey, we're thinking of going to see this concert tonight and coming back and eat dinner. And I said, well, my vote would be that we stay here and cook dinner so we can enjoy the house. Whereas in the past, I wouldn't have said that. And
that's true.
And I just
Very
said it's
good.
my vote, meaning I said I'm open, but that would be my vote. And so I've learned both to be flexible and also express my opinion, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's a
That's
delicate dance between partnership and getting to know your partner. This goes back to what you said earlier, Gabby, about identifying our, childhood traumas and our wounds that we carry within ourselves. And it's important to, once we become aware of them, to communicate this with our partner, and they in turn communicate that to us so we can know what to work with. I mean, this is a person that we really deeply care about and love. So why wouldn't you want to create this container of emotional safety for your partner and listen, but also communicate your past as well, so the two of you can work together, because these will come up in relationships. Triggers will happen.
They sure will. He sure will. Right? It is not a trigger-free
Right.
life and relationship. I mean, you get triggered by yourself, let alone you start bringing in the dynamic of a whole nother human being. And then if you have kids and all the demands of that, we need these relationship skills just to keep anchoring to, because, life is quite has a lot coming at you.
Right, which
Right.
brings us, right. Yeah, totally. Which brings us to our third point. Manage your emotional triggers.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we expect our partner to manage our emotional triggers for us. Like in the case of the air conditioning in the car ride, dropping hints. We expect our partner to pick up on our emotional cues, or to, guess what it is that we want. Or this is very common even for people who aren't in a relationship, but who are single and dating, and who are still getting to know each other and navigating that very delicate dance during the first month of actually getting to know someone. An unanswered text, or a text that takes a long time to be answered. We tend to, get really triggered by that because we're sensitive. We don't know how this person feels about us. We don't know what they're doing. We assume the worst. And so when we finally hear from this person, we blame, we attack, we get angry. How come I didn't hear from you? How come you didn't text? Rather than really ask ourselves, okay, what's coming up for me right now? Why am I feeling anxiety and insecurity over not hearing from this person? And really, going back and identified, because I've experienced abandonment before, I've experienced this before, but is this person going to do this to me? Probably not. So should I give them the benefit of the doubt? Yes. And to, express how we felt during that long gap, or if it was 2 or 3 days without hearing from them, without attacking the other person, but to really manage our own triggers. And again, using our empowered voice to express our wants and needs by saying, I'd really love to hear from you more often, rather than attack and blame them. How come you didn't text me back? Which really causes your partner to put a wall up, and they will stonewall and they will shut down. And oftentimes, unfortunately, relationships don't make it past that first month because of our past wounds and traumas.
Yeah, there's so much depth to that emotional trigger, because the emotional trigger gets in the way of you actually being able to be an adult in the relationship.
Right.
You're basically regressing back to whatever, name the number, 3 to 8-year-old behavior, 10-year-old behavior, and pretending to be an adult. But Gabby's dad, who's one of my coaches, believe it or not, he's a pretty powerful coach. For our viewers out there, I don't know if you've seen Wild Wild Country, about Osho and the commune that
It's a Netflix documentary.
was built up in
Wow.
Oregon. But Naren was Osho's attorney, and he has about 40 years of personal growth and all kinds of coaching background. And he told me, don't expect your partner to handle your emotional vomit.
Oh, nice.
And
I love that.
instead, like you're saying, either express your need from an empowered place, or your want, or share vulnerably, like what's going on for you. Like, I don't know if people feel safe, but like, I hadn't heard from you in 4 days, and I just, when I don't hear from somebody, I think they don't care about me or whatever, and it's different than you coming at them and be, why didn't you text me? You don't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
They can have compassion for you. If you don't vomit, you're upset on them, but rather,
Oh, geez, I noticed that when I didn't hear from you, and today, like I started to make it mean all this stuff, I felt like a silly 17-year-old girl, or,
Yeah.
I felt like that 7-year-old that was, whatever.
yeah, however you want to share it in a way that works for you. And then also just that like that's been one of my biggest upgrades in relationship. These tips are so powerful, and Sarah, they're spot on, really potent, because I've finally gotten to a point. I'm 51. One would expect maybe I'd get to that point earlier in life, but maybe 2 years ago or so, I really was able to start managing my emotional reaction to things, and therefore be able to actually communicate what I wanted instead of being hijacked by my younger self and all of my, lower brain stuff taking over the show.
Yeah, this is powerful what you're even sharing too, Gabby and Raj. It's so true. Like our shadow will always be with us, but it's becoming awareness that it's there and getting better and better and better as time passes, just as, the tips you gave with our viewers earlier in the segment.
Say that last thing again. You cut out for just a second.
Oh, yes. So I just wanted to say, the tips that even you're sharing are very powerful. Our shadow will always be there and will always be with us. The key is to be aware that it's there and to get better and better and better at managing our triggers over time. Just like you shared with the viewers about fights getting better over time. It's the same with our own shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Okay, good. So we have your last tip here.
Okay, access your feminine energy to create a safe space. Now, this applies to both men and women. I'm sure, many of you, I'm sure, have heard of masculine and feminine energy, but for those of you who've never heard of that, and this is new to you, it has nothing to do with our sex or our gender. It's just, whoever labeled it feminine and masculine energy. So the masculine energy is a driver. The masculine energy shows up when we are creating a business, or if we're striving to excel in our career or in the gym or sports, whatever that is. Feminine energy is the energy of receiving and holding space. And both men and women have both energies within them. So it's really important that after a fight, at least an hour, as Gabby and Raj, addressed earlier in the segment with viewers, when the storm has calmed, so to speak, and you're ready to discuss the after part, to really access your feminine energy and be in a state of receiving feedback from your partner, because they will give you feedback and tell you what's working and what's not working from the empowered place, right? And for you to hold space as you hear this, because whatever your partner shares with you, it's really important that you validate their feelings and that you're in the space of receiving what it is, because it's only going to help you be a better partner for them. They're communicating their wants and needs. And so take that feedback and see it as this person is improving me as a person. It's helping me improve. And of course, you're going to do the same. And to hold space for your partner and to communicate from your empowered voice, and this is like almost like a recap of everything, to acknowledge your role in the breakdown, to use your empowered voice to communicate your wants and needs, and managing your emotional triggers instead of saying, you should have figured out what it was that I wanted, but rather to communicate. And you really be aware of your own emotional traumas and past wounds, and communicate this with your partner so your partner can work with you when these things come up. Of course, the fights are still going to happen. The goal is to get them fewer and far in between. And when they do, hold space for each other, access your feminine energy, and be in a state of receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some tips on how to access your feminine energy?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's of course, after an argument, we're still riled up, we're still triggered, right? So do whatever you need to do. For some people, it's going for a run, it's going to the gym and hitting weights. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's reading, maybe it's a bath. Do whatever you would do when you're experiencing stress in any type of situation, and what you can do to decompress that way. And go spend time with yourself. I think self-love is so important in this. Remember who you are, what you need from yourself. That way you can be able to show up powerfully with your partner and give to them as well.
That's great. Yeah, and you might come up with your own ways to get into that space, right? You listed a few.
Yeah,
so might create your top 3 or some others.
Your go-to list.
Your go-to list, yeah.
Yeah.
That you find that works for you.
It's a nourishment menu. That's what I like to call it.
Nourishment menu. I like that.
Yes. Because I also speak into health and personal training. Not a lot of people like weights. They fear it. So I say, okay, we'll create a nourishment menu, a movement menu, but the same menu applies to situations like you just had a fight with your partner. So what can you pull from the nourishment menu that you need to give yourself in that moment to help you decompress? That way you can be in a space of giving and receiving to your partner.
Yeah, it really takes something, right, to take in what someone might want to share, or for you to share in a way that can be listened to.
Right.
And you don't want to be in that triggered state or unstate when you do that. Otherwise, it's likely not to turn out the way you want it to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, maybe if I'm stressed, I'll bring you my nourishment menu, or if you're stressed, I'll bring you your nourishment menu. Would you like any of these, sir? You seem in need of some nourishment.
You can create a nourishment menu together.
Yes,
Give me
the
some
top
nourishment.
10 things to nourish our relationship, right?
Oh, I like it.
I like
Yay.
that. Create a nourishment. Did I get that one? I said for decompression, but I'm going to create one together.
Mhm.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I so appreciate, these tips and more. Just your whole presence is just bright and delightful. And, these are simple yet really potent tips from, the starting with ownership, finding not just your voice to communicate, but communicating from an empowered place. Owning that, when your triggers happen, that they're your triggers and how to handle them. And then softening and creating a partner to move forward are all really powerful tips that, I'm going to use.
Yeah, you could even have this be your scoring criteria for your even better ifing after an
Sure.
argument.
Did I acknowledge the argument? Did I use my empowered voice? Did I manage my own triggers? And did I access my feminine energy?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Okay. So yes, and you can also create your own argument, even better ifing. What are the criteria that are important for you for your arguments? Those of you that are watching, you've got the questions we came up with. You've got these wonderful tips from Sarah. But one of my favorite and pieces of advice a mentor used to always say to me is, how can you use and adapt this? How can you use and adapt this? So take what you like, make it your own. The whole point is just to engage and be active in your relationship. Now, speaking of being active and engaged, if you want to find out more, you can find Sarah Reynosa on Facebook or Instagram, and on her podcast, as we mentioned, Real Reflection, which is real talk, real issues, and real people. Find her. I believe that's on Thursdays. Is that right, Sarah?
Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, I go live in my own personal Facebook page, which they are public.
Great. Awesome. Wonderful. And if you're new to Relationship Fun and Games, we have a free gift for you, our Relationship Reset Kit, which is our 4-part mini email course, which has some of our favorite tips, including a very short video on each of these tips. Some of our very best ones here, the hot and bothered backseat driver is a really fun one. And we have never, ever, ever had an argument about driving in the car again. And we'll also send you our guidebook on how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty, which has dozens of tips in there. So you can get that at this link here, relationshipfunandgames.com/get-free-gifts-main. And we'll put that in the comments if you're watching this live, so you don't have to write that down. You can just click on it. And if you would like more information from Relationship Fun and Games, some more wisdom, some more fun, we've got our ebook, which has dozens of tips in there. And that's available for discount on the website. Our P3 stores, so all sorts of fun props and games and toys for keeping the fights clean and the sex dirty. You can check those out there.
Really cool stuff here. If you're a guy or a woman and you're looking for gifts for your partner, just drop in here because Gabby loves scouring the internet for these really fun
It's fun.
tools,
It's a lot of fun.
Toys.
Tips, tools,
What is
toys. Yeah. It's a date bucket list
list
there. Yeah, he's looking at
Cool.
all sorts of fun games. You can check out past episodes of this show, Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV. And these are some pictures of here in our home in Santa Barbara where we have couples come to our home. You can do it online as well, but create a vision, have a vacation, and create a shared relationship vision. So you leave not just having a nice vacation, but also having a vision to anchor and align around and towards together. And you can find much more of that at relationshipfunandgames.com/offerings. We even now are helping people create their wedding vows. We've done that a few times by request, and so thought we would offer that to some other people as well. Super fun on helping people get ready for their weddings. And then finally, we just want to share with you for next week.
So next week is our last episode of the season.
Yes, it is.
And it's how to keep the sex dirty after post-lovemaking tips to excite from lips to hips.
Lips to hips. We're going to be talking about the juicy, passionate, connected, yummy, loving space after making love. And so how do you take all of that energy and goodwill and create a ripple effect that's going to travel out of the bedroom and into your day-to-day lives? I love this picture here. This couple is just like so sexy and beautiful, right? So we're going to have August 15th, Ashay and Lucienne, to really cap off the end of a fantastic season, the season of play. So thanks everyone for joining us for how to keep the fights clean after. Next week will be how to keep the sex dirty. And we encourage you to take action, take your own, and as we said, use and adapt this. Find out more about Sarah Reynoso, find out more about relationship fun and games, but just engage, because a little bit of intention, attention, and action spread out over time really takes it out of the realm of work and brings it into the realm of fun. Video is saying, yeah, just changing it to video.
Great to learn from you tonight, Sarah, and for everyone watching tonight or watching the preview, enjoy the rest of your night or the remaining weeks of summer.
And thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. It's really great to have you and all your business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Great.
so
And yeah, all those who are watching the show or the replay, thanks for being here. We know that life is full, and the fact that you're just here and engaged and leaning into love and what's next for you is just super inspiring and important in the world. The world is a tough place. We've often said, the world is too tough to do alone, and yet a crappy relationship is worse than none at all. But a wonderful relationship, while it takes something, is so worth it.
Beautiful.
So here's to your relationship, being playful, peaceful, and passionate. We'll see you next week for the next episode, final episode of the season. And please reach out to us. Let us know what you want to hear more of, who you'd like to see on the show. We'll be coming back with season 10 come September with the season of peace, just in time for the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Have a great evening, everybody, and hope to see you next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.